So we've gone from 1978, we're now in 1979, and we're going to focus on the production that went on. We're going to travel to Brazil, we're going to go to Argentina, we're going to go to Paris, back to Paris, we're going to go to Guatemala, and we're also going to go to Pinewood, just up the road. So if you got on the top of the house, top of the hotel, you could probably see Pinewood Studios from up there. Right, so going to start off. We got Colin Miller, who's involved in the sound effects. We got John Richardson, who is involved in the boat chase. We got Mr. Paul Weston, who was Jaws, Drax Fighters, and US Marines, and Irka Bochenko, who was Blonde Beauty. Thank you very much. So if we could start off the questions, we could start with John. So 1979, January 1979, you were in Brazil. On the border, Iguazu Falls, on the border between Brazil and Argentina. And this is where you were filming. I wonder if you could tell us about what should have happened and what did happen.
Should have all... that's better?
Yeah.
That's it. Well, we went there to put Bond's boat over the edge of the falls. That was probably the main shot we were asked to do, and shoot a lot of background plates. Somebody had been there before and said, "Oh, it's easy. We just shove the boat out upstream, and it'll go straight down and go over the edge of the falls." I went out there with Ernie Day, the second unit director, and looked at it and thought, well, don't think it'll work, but we'll give it a try. They'd already spent the money to get the boat out there. So two of us, my oppo, Johnny Morris, and I, had to wade out across the top of the falls to get the boat into position, which took 2 days, and we went from rock to rock, roping one another off and pulling the boat across behind us. We got it into a suitable position, cameras got ready, released the boat, and the boat went up to the edge of the falls, a little bit further than it is now, and just stopped with a rock through the bottom, which we didn't realise at the time because it had filled up with water. So back in the bar that night, always come up with the best ideas in the bar for some reason. I said, well, if you lower me down on a helicopter winch, I'll try and push the boat over. I was a lot younger then than it was in a bar. So they, first time we did it, they dropped me in the water 3 times, on the bushes once. I eventually got hold of the boat and tried to push it, and it wouldn't budge. So we went back to the bar, talked about it again, and I said, well, if they lower me down on the winch, I'll get hold of the front of the boat. Helicopter flies back over the falls, and I'll pull the boat over. And then as soon as it starts to move, I let go and, doesn't pull the helicopter down. So then the pilot informed us he couldn't do it on the winch because it only held 300 kilos. So we came up with plan D, which was lower me down on the winch until I'm hanging on a rope which is fixed to the cargo lifting point. That worked well. I got onto the front of the boat and the helicopter started flying backwards. And strangely, over the noise of the helicopter rotors, I could hear a ping, ping, ping noise. It took me a few seconds to figure out what it was, and then I realised it was the stitching on the harness breaking. Then you start counting how many stitches have gone. Yeah. Do I stay with the boat and wait until it breaks, or go with the helicopter. So I opted to go with the helicopter. And then, of course, spun round like a top with the rope and the cable stuck together. So we had to hover over the edge of the falls while they tried to get me back up into the helicopter. Johnny, my mate, was sitting in the back working the winch, and I got up, so I was hanging with my hands on the skid. Johnny signalled to the pilot, who thought he meant I was in the helicopter, which I wasn't. So the pilot then did one of those spectacular dives over the edge of the falls, down the valley and up the valley. So you thought you were Superman, yeah. 3 days later, the helicopter was doing something else, and it lost all lift and dropped out the sky. So I'm here.
Wow.
So.
Now, at the same time, there was another part of the sequence that they filmed.
How did you get the boat over, John, in the end?
We went back to the bar. Got very pissed. And then, fortunately, it rained overnight, and the water came up in the river and washed it over. And we got up the next morning and it had gone. And I was very relieved. The next plan would have never worked.
Well, this was what they did the footage. And actually, if you look on the left-hand side, I don't know if you've ever seen it, you can see the Bond boat and Jaws' boat. Anyone ever noticed that before? No? Can you see them? Yep, they're in there. Now, this is what... Well, you obviously filmed this footage here. This was some of the footage. I mean, it is fantastic at Guazhou Falls, isn't it? If you ever get the chance to go to Guazhou Falls, they're absolutely incredible. Now, that was fun. Was that a model at all, John?
Sorry?
Was it a model, the boat with the when it comes out?
It was a real boat, and the
That was a model at Pinewood.
that was a model at Pinewood that Derek did after.
That's Paris.
The first shot wasn't a model. We shot that in Miami,
Yeah.
Key West. Look, that was a real shot. The guy who flew the hang glider, he's actually still alive down in Dorset. He was supposed to fly over the falls and then land at the bottom, and he crashed in the forest. So I just sent a search party over to go and find him.
Yeah.
But used the shot.
Now, I know the boat you're talking about. He's called John Long, isn't he? The hang glider pilot. And he did an interview recently. I don't know if you've seen the interview. Is it Chris Distin? Anyone know Chris Distin? He's done that fantastic book on the man with the golden gun that's just come out. Absolutely amazing. And he did a wonderful interview with the two hang glider pilots. Now, they say that they did fly over the waterfalls, but the cameraman didn't have any film in it.
That's probably true at the time, but I think he flew over more than once.
Yeah.
And we did all sorts of funny tests out on an airfield on the Argentinian side.
Yeah.
But most of what you see is real, no CGI.
Oh, thank you very much.
Don't start me on that.
We didn't have CGI.
I just want to ask Colin.
That's what I mean. There's no CGI.
I just want to ask Colin a shot.
You were there too.
One of the bits I love in that scene is the sound effect of the helmet going on the ground. Did you do that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, that was done later on in the effects theatre we created that and applied it to the scene.
I just think that is one of the greatest sound effects in a Bond film. You know, I'm that Moonraker sad, you know, but I love the sound of that helmet going on the ground. We're going to stay with Iguazu Falls for the next scene. But Irka, you filmed this scene. I don't know if any of you know that the start of this scene, it's not Brazil. Would you like to tell us about where this is?
This is Cascade de Boulogne in Paris, because they already forgot to shoot this sequence, so we did it here in Paris.
So it's actually near to a roundabout. If you've ever been to Paris, I know some of you have, you can find this location. It's a waterfall in a park in Paris. But it looks amazing, doesn't it? It actually looks like you're in... I think they dangled some plants in front of the camera to make it look like the Amazon. They really did, because I've seen it on the call sheet. But there you are. So I'm just going to play this sequence, which is, again, Iguazu Falls. But the difference, the other bits were filmed from Brazil. This is now in Argentina. And that's all the bits that were filmed in Argentina.
Irka, I just want to ask, do you remember filming at the Falls, and were you in Brazil for long?
For, I think, 1 week, something like this. And of course, my story is not as interesting as there, because I just had to take James Bond to the pit, and so it was not that interesting. So I just had to walk.
And you did some promotional shots at a hotel in Rio, I believe. Did some promotional shots when you were there, some publicity. Do you do any publicity shots while you were in Brazil?
Yes. We did a lot in Brazil. Yeah, a lot of.
Oh, thank you.
We're wondering, you obviously you went on the rocks in high heels.
No,
did they ever...
The hills were not very high, but I remember we were suffering because the weather was very wet, we were humid, and so we were wet. But no, it was not that terrible to walk there.
Yeah, but it's an absolutely beautiful location. If you ever get the chance to go there, it's absolutely amazing. Now, we've got this behind-the-scenes shot. There's your mate, Chunky, in there. It's lovely, isn't it? Yeah. There's Irka, Roger, you've got Lewis Gilbert as well, and quite a few of the crew there. I love that shot. It's one of there's not many behind-the-scenes shots of them actually filming at the waterfalls. They're only there for a couple of days, right at the end of the South America set, the South America shoot. But we're gonna move on because someone else on our panel was also in South America for the filming, and that was Paul. Do you remember being in South America? Right. Well, this is a scene of you. That's not Paul. Right, okay. But we got, obviously, you went all the way to Rio de Janeiro to film this. That's right, yep. And so here's the shot. That's it. Give me a round of applause. I love that, and you obviously jumped like that, like George. How did you do that shot? Could you tell us about how you did that shot?
Yes, it won't switch this on. Can you hear me? No. Thank you. Hello. Thank you. Yeah, I got a call to go to Pinewood Studios for Moonraker, and I thought, well, they're all in Paris, so what would I be doing there? and apparently it was the second unit. And I arrived there, and they said that you're doubling for Jaws. I said, oh, it's good. He's like 7 foot, whatever. So I go on the set, and there's these two cable cars, and they're quite wide apart. And they said to me, we want you to jump from one to the other. And they're about 30 feet in the studio. And I said, but they're quite wide. How wide are they? He said, just over 16 feet. Can you jump 16 feet? I said, no. And they said, well, we can't use wires. You're going to have to, work out a way of doing it. So I went to the bar. And I worked out that if I put a mini trampoline on Jaws' side, you can just about see it in that photograph. On some stills, you can see it even better. And I could get up onto the cables or area and jump down. I could get it. So to rehearse it, I went. There was an old iron ladder against the wall in the studio, and I put the mini trampoline underneath it and put some crash mats out, and I measured out 16 feet.
We've got the photo up there of you doing it.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I had to.
I could just
where did you get that? I've never seen that.
I could just show you what it should have looked, how it's storyboarded. That's how it should have looked.
Oh, well, he's got wires on.
Storyboard. Yeah, he's got wires on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I've never seen that one before. So I put some crash mats on the floor, and I was getting all ready. The rehearsal, I went up 6 feet, jumped on the trampoline, and it took me about 8 feet, and I went up a bit higher until I was jumping down far enough to be able to propel myself the 16 feet to get to the other side. And it worked out. I thought, well, yeah, I couldn't do this. So I got all the gear on, got ready. I think it was Ernie Day was directing second unit. And it said, okay, stand by. I got up there. The boys put a little platform on the top so I could jump down onto the mini trampoline, which you can imagine it's like 2 foot across. And I had to hit the center of it. If I hit slightly one way or the other, I would have gone off and missed the cable car completely. So I was up there, and we said, okay, stand by. And then Ernie shouted up, Paul. I said, yes. He said, have you got your teeth? I said, yeah, I've got my teeth. Of course I've got my teeth. He said, no, have you got Jaws teeth? I said, no one's giving me any Jaws teeth. So I went on to props. Where's the teeth? Because we might see a glimpse of it. So they said, no, they're in munching somewhere in Paris. We haven't got any teeth here at all. So I said to the guys, I'm still standing up there. I said to the props guy, go to the canteen, get an orange, give me a quarter of it and some silver paper from a cigarette packet, and I'll wrap around it, I'll make my own. Which I did, and they handed them down to me, and I put them in, and I've got caps, and you imagine what you put in silver paper in your mouth. It was like a 12-volt battery. I was, all right, yeah, ready, and nothing. I'm standing there waiting to jump, and they no action or anything, so I had to take them out again, and I said, what's going on? Can you hurry up? And they said, we're running, we're just waiting for you to jump. I went, come on, give me a loud action. So put them in and finally did the jump. I got across the other side okay, and stubbed my toe on the girders on the other side. It worked okay, and then we had to wait to see the playback, and we got it in one, so I didn't have to do it again. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's So,
We've got a couple of. What's that? That was in Pinewood, though, Paul,
Yeah.
wasn't it? That was it, wasn't it? In Pinewood.
yeah. Someone had taken a picture of Brazil and put it in the background to make it look like it was there, but it's absolutely fantastic. So, right. So we're going to go from Pinewood. We're going to go from Pinewood back to the Americas, and we're going to go to Florida. Going to go to Florida now, and a place called Port St. Lucie, which is on the east coast of Florida, which was doubling as the Florida Everglades. I'm going to show this amazing, the amazing boat chase that's in there that this man John Richardson was involved with. Were you in the boat setting off the explosions?
There's an explosion in one of the boats in the middle. That's me coming under back into the water.
You should be a stuntman.
No thanks.
Oh, you got competition. And you, Michael, you got competition. Right, I want to ask Colin about that. You did the sound effects for that, didn't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. So how did you sort of make those sound effects?
Well, a lot of it as like would have it, are drawn from a sound library who've done the library contains some of the material that's been used on other films, but we had to try and match as close as we could to the boat itself that we're talking about. So we applied some, but some of the sounds was actually recorded on location at the time. So we had to sort of, should we say, shots 1 and 3 that were the original sound. The intermediate shot was probably had no sound on it at all. So we had to match from the library material or reorganised the other takes where the boat sound was the same. So it was a question of just re-engineering a lot of material to match it all together.
And John, how long did it take to film that sequence?
Oh, I think we were probably shooting for a month out there. I mean, that's why I got into special effects, to do stuff like that. It was great fun. Mike Turk, the boatman, who was a very old friend of mine, his guys ran all the boats. That's a couple of them there.
Is that Mike in the picture there?
No, that's I think that's Ian McDougall and Peter Bennett.
Yeah.
The lovely Peter. Excuse me, but yeah, it was all real dynamite and very close timing. And when we didn't have any stuntmen there, so I said I'd do.
Didn't need them.
I'd be the guy coming out the back of the boat, and to be honest, I wasn't at all worried about the explosion in there. I was just terrified about the snakes and the alligators in the water, and I practically ran across the water to get back to the safety boat.
Wow. And how many boats did you get through during the shoot?
All of them.
I'll come back to
pretty
them in a
much.
minute.
We blew up, I think, probably 4 or 5 of the chase boats. And I think Bond's boat was the only one that survived.
Wow. And now I understand that Mike Turk, who was the one who had the boats, he was a good friend of yours. Were you his best man, or was he your best man?
Mike Turk was my best man twice.
Wow. Now, I've heard on another interview that apparently Mike was a bit of a practical joker. And I wondered if you'd like to tell everyone in the Pinewood Hotel about another hotel, this one in Florida, a little practical joke.
Careful, John. Yeah, thank you for this. We used to play a lot of practical jokes. And one day I got up to relieve myself in the morning, and there was a little tiny, very tiny black creature walking sideways across a part of my anatomy where I'd rather it wasn't. And I ended up going to the location at Port St Lucie, and they made an appointment for me to go and see the doctor, where there was a big friendly American nurse saw me in and, "Morning, honey, what's the problem?" I said, "Oh, I've got a bad throat." So they shunted me in to see the doctor. And I said, "Look, I found this," and I caught this little thing in a 35mm film can. And I said, "I found this walking sideways. Is it what I think it is?" And he said, "No." He said, I wouldn't worry about it. And, Jewish. I said, "Yeah." Anyway, back at the hotel that night, they got another doctor in, and same film can, same little creature. Showed it to him, and he said, "God," he said, "I haven't seen one of these since Nam." He gave me the cure, which was to put on a shampoo from there down and stand in the shower for 20 minutes, which I did 3 times. 3 months later, I'm round at Mike Turk's with the rest of my family, and Turk says, "Oh boy, did my boys play a good joke on you?" And he wouldn't tell me what it was. So I said, "Was it anything to do with crabs?" At which point, Turk is on the floor, laughing, clutching his stomach. And it turns out these guys had caught these little tiny baby crabs on the dock where we were filming, broke into my hotel room and sprinkled them in the bed. I did get retribution.
Well, I hope they're not staying here tonight. And just what now? This is a face, John. Do you recognise this person?
I don't from this angle.
It's your son.
Right. Anyone? I know some people in here know the answer, but anyone who doesn't know the answer, would they like to take a guess of who they think this person is?
Richard Keel?
Richard Keel. It is Richard Keel. It is Richard Keel. No, not that Richard Keel. It's another Richard Keel. Because apparently some of the crew, they needed to stand in for Richard Keel, because he was in France or London at the time. And they found a man, a very tall man in a bar, whose name actually was Richard Keel. Keel. And if you notice on the shots, we put him, yeah, that's him. That's why you don't see Jaws. It's just a very, in fact, there was a message forum a couple of months ago on the Port St Lucie message forum. They were celebrating like the 45th anniversary of Moonraker, and the people were so convinced that it actually was Richard Keel. I mean, how many people do you meet that tall called Richard Keel? You're going to think you've met Jaws. I mean, they're quite disappointed when I was pointing out, actually, that wasn't that one. It was another one. But they all thought they met. So there he is. And you'll see him in some of the behind-the-scenes shots. This is one of my favourite. Actually, this was one of my favourite shots before I saw the football team earlier. But you could see Richard Keel down there. He was a very tall man. In fact, they were so convinced it was Richard Keel. It's not Richard Keel. I don't know if he's alive or not. I tried to find him, but it's a shame as well. So there's one of the shots from there, and there's one of your boats left over, and we've also got. Now someone said, who was it? Was it Terry Bamber said that the jump with the boat the car in a boat and the car in Man with the Golden Gun was one of the greatest unsung stunts. I think this is one of the greatest unsung stunts. Yeah, but some opinions are facts. Controversial. No, this one boat going over another, and how did they do that shot?
There was a ramp behind the jumping boat, and there was a little sort of stream went off it. So we built a ramp and anchored it down the stream, put some bushes up in front of it. The most difficult thing about the shot was the timing, because to get the time, both boats are doing 30 miles an hour, so to get that close, and they did lots of practice runs and practice jumps, and then timed it, and that's the result. It worked perfectly.
It's such an amazing unsung shot. I think it's because was there dummies in the boat as well?
Yeah, apart from the driver, it was all dummies.
Well, we managed to find the dummies.
That is you, John.
Managed to find this just last week. There's because it's the 45th anniversary. They've done a little post on one of the Port St Lucie websites, and there's that shot there with all the dummies, and I love that shot. It's fantastic. And that's the guy who double Bond, Ian was it McDougall? And he was in the boat that went underneath, and he claims that the boat that went over almost took his head off. So yeah, it's amazing how you all managed to get out of this alive. It really is.
It was fun.
Right, and then this is the final shot. I talked about Steve Oxenrider. This is one of Steve Oxenrider's pictures that's on there. And this was Steve Fensom, who was the other hang glider pilot at the time, but he was in the Everglades, and apparently, Port St Lucie. And apparently they used him rather than the other guy, because the other guy was too short. And he was a better double for Roger. So there, but if you get a chance, look on YouTube, find the interview with the two glider pilots. It's absolutely hilarious. And now we're going to go on to Guatemala.
Irka, do you remember shooting Guatemala, and was there anything that was shot that didn't end up in the film because it's only 3 seconds worth in the actual final film?
That's it.
One doesn't work. Okay. Well, no, it's okay. Can
Oh, of course. Do you remember being in Guatemala, and was it an enjoyable experience?
Yeah, it was just fantastic. Everywhere I went, it was fantastic. The only thing I was a little bit disappointed because we shot a lot of sequences and they removed a lot, so I was a little bit sad. Here also we shot a lot, and very few of them left. So this is, but it was fantastic. Everywhere I went, it was just fantastic.
Did you have a favourite location on the film?
No, really, I loved everywhere. Venice, here, and everywhere. It was really great. And the thing is that the team was smaller, so we were closer. Each other. We were closer from each other. So it was really great memories.
Lovely. Thank you.
I think one of the sad things about the way that cinema's gone now is if that you would never get a second unit going out to Guatemala for 4 days just to film 3 seconds of footage. Now it would all be done with a CGI background, and you'd never get the opportunity to go there. So I think that's one of the lost arts. But obviously a place they couldn't film, or maybe did film, it says on the end of the titles, is Outer Space. Outer Space. And Outer Space was actually just up the road at Pinewood Studios on the 007 set. And there's a marvellous space battle that went on. And Paul over here, he was one of the, and probably more than one. You're a lot of the people in the sequence. See if you can spot Paul in this sequence. You will actually see him die and then resurrect. So see if you can spot Paul in this sequence.
One platoon, UBA.
I love that sequence. Give it a round of applause. That's right. Thank you very much. Thank you, John, for your part. And the soundtrack. Thank you, Graham. Now, your character actually had a name.
Did he really?
Yes. Yes.
My lord, was it?
Well, no. Red Leader.
I didn't know that.
There you are. So if you've learnt nothing from today, you know that Paul was Red Leader in that. What was it like filming the space battle?
The television's on. Hello. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, the 007 stage must have cost a fortune. Was black velvet all the way round. One side of the stage where we were shooting, it must have cost a fortune. But yeah, we were in the astronaut suits with laser packs on. We had our backpacks, and that was supposed to be for the oxygen, and then we had the lasers on our shoulders. And we're wearing little harnesses under your crutch. So you've got two straps going under your crutch, and all your weight is on your crutch. And we tried everything to try it. We went to the bar, didn't help. We tried everything to try to alleviate the pain from your crutch. And we even tried putting like stirrups down into our costume under your feet and tried to stand on it. But that was just as painful because it was cutting into your feet. It was so bad that I think two guys fainted. I mean, what it was doing was blocking the blood off to your brain. And you see him there fighting away, and suddenly, boom, get him down, get the next one up. Yeah, so it was painful. But it was lovely. Derek said I was playing the Red Leader, of course. And then Derek said to me he did a fantastic job with the models in foreground and running back the film to get all the elements into it. Just amazing. And he said to me, he said, get into the other costume. So I got into Drax mob. And he said, go down, there's a platform at the end of the studio. And with the foreground miniature and the arm coming out, it looked like I was actually coming out of the spaceship arm. So I floated out there and then carried on killing myself. Yeah. Amazing set.
Yeah, I heard that story before. So they obviously had these poles to try and I understand it was a very cold set. The 007 stage, very cold set, because I know there's some behind the scenes. There's one of the shots. I don't know if you can see in this one. There's a guy down there wearing a bobble hat.
Yeah.
The bottom left hand was outfit as George Lane Cooper.
Yeah.
He was the bobble hat. I got another lovely behind the scenes shot as well of you coming out of the shuttle. Where is it? Here we are.
Nice.
Yeah, this is you've got Paul.
Me on the left.
Yeah, and George there. Yeah, with your big handlebars bar moustache as well, if you've ever seen him in Diamonds. Okay. So that was fantastic. But these were some of the guys that you were involved with.
Colin, I just wanted to ask you about doing the sounds for the climatic space battle. Do you remember much about doing the sequence?
Yes. The thing about Moonraker was that sort of it was very much a conventional Bond film, with the exception that we've never been in space before. So we had all the conventional chases and fights on Earth, but having a whole space sequence presented a whole new challenge. Not least being all the lasers for the laser guns. Now, as we know, it was only Stanley Kubrick who was strong enough to dictate that there was to be no sound in space. Well, of course, for a Bond movie, that's no good at all, especially one involving a huge, great battle. So we had to, I couldn't tell what I was going to do about the lasers until I started to see some of the shots. So we got to thinking, so went to the bar. And pondered the problem. I then had occasion to talk to one of the associate producers and talking about it, and he apparently knew somebody who had a small music studio in London, and they'd just acquired this piece of equipment called a Moog synthesizer. So they said, well, go up there and play around with that. So along with my colleague, we arranged that we would go to the studio, but prior to that, we called the guy who was going to be operating the Moog synthesizer down to Pinewood, and we were able to show him some of the space sequence and some of the sounds that we were going to require. And he sort of nodded sagely and sort of said, well, we'll experiment. So come today, my colleague and I, we arrived at the studio, and we said to him, well, now we need to sort of talk about that you had the space pistols, the cannons, and the rifles. So we wanted to make a change. A gunshot is a gunshot, is a bang, is a bang, is a bang. But a laser is completely different. We wanted to make them individually match the sound to the weapon itself. So we experimented until we found something for the pistol. So, but as you will see, all the laser shots are probably 3-4 frames long each. So we just couldn't keep going bang, 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 bang like that. So we recorded a 30-second length of constant track. So once we'd established the sound for the pistol, we then went on to the rifle, and we then went on to the cannons. And so we came away with a series of all different sounds, and which we also changed certain frequencies so they weren't all exactly the same. So we started to apply these to the film, but when you realise that some of those are just, as I say, 3 or 4 frames long, each one had to be cut individually. Now, when you look up there and see just how much action, I mean, imagine a machine gun. Well, we were trying to do a machine gun with a laser sound with just that very brief interruption in between. And we gave it to none of our colleagues to fit each one individually. It took him over 3.5 weeks to do it. But of course, then we applied it to the picture, but then the film was recut. So it was back to the drawing board to rearrange all these tracks. But eventually, when the final cut was achieved, we were able to lock them down, And then came the time to play the whole sequence to see if it was working for Lewis Gilbert and for Cubby. And we sat there with great trepidation because it then had to be blended with all the explosions and the crashes and bangs. And we sat there, as I say, and we ran the sequence and ended, and there was this brief silence, and there was this great sigh of relief, and Lewis, bless him, said, "Oh, that was a great space battle." And then sort of Cubby thought it was also very good as well. So we achieved our aim, I'm glad to say, but it was a challenge to make it work. But I think we met the challenge and it worked.
Now, one of the this is one of the call sheets from Pinewood, and there's someone I want to talk about. There's a real unsung hero of British cinema, in fact, of genre of cinema, and it's a guy called Derek Battelle. Some of you may have heard of him, some of you may not. Some of you worked with him. Paul certainly worked with him on Superman as well. He's someone who'd done the wire work for Willy Wonka. You know, when they're going up they eat something and they go up and there's all bubbles. Superman, he was on Superman, Alien, and Flash Gordon as well. But he's a real unsung. Do you have any memories about Derek Battelle and his team?
Yeah, just what the wonderful, talented group of people he put together. And I first met him on the puppets when Jerry Anderson was doing the puppets. I used to go in and watch them with Frank Holland. Remember Frank Holland, the first assistant? So I knew him from them, and that's where he started doing the models and became, really a genius at it. I mean, just a talent that John here, I'm sure, would say he was one of the best.
He was, although he lifted me up on the wires on a film called The Little Prince once. Both the wires broke and he dropped me.
I shouldn't laugh.
I did with that.
Yeah, he's just a wonderful man, lovely guy. Worked with him on Aliens and lots of other movies. We did The Land Time Forgot. And it was interesting with all the new ladies getting in this big tub. Do you remember the one? And he had to get amongst them and put some dry ice in these big cauldrons. And he had to be right amongst all these naked ladies. It was terrible. I don't know who did it. But a lovely guy.
Paul, I wanted to ask you about the stunt performers, because it's very much a who's who of British stunt artists. Do you have any recollections of Eddie Eden and Richard Graydon?
Yes, Eddie Eden was a character, and he was taken away on movies because he was a good character. He made you laugh. He was on the first Star Wars. He was one of the guys in the first entrance of the Stormtroopers. He was a wind-up person. He just wound everybody up and kept everybody laughing on the set. He wasn't a great stuntman. You couldn't, say, go and do a high fall or a car knockdown. But he was there throughout the probably 50s, 60s, 70s. I used him on Superman 2, I think. That's the last time I worked with him. But he's obviously his wife, Sadie Eden, who was one of the best.
Both in the picture here.
Yeah, she's one of the best stunt girls we had. And now his daughter, Tracy, and now their daughter, Cassie, is working as stunts. But Tracy doubled for Carrie Fisher on Star Wars. And I first used her when she was 15 years old, doing a training commercial, a training film. But yeah, great family. the Edmonds. But he was a character, always selling something from the back of the car. But yeah, he and Dickie Graydon, I mean, was one of our top. He was the one that was on the cable car, and during the fight with Martin Grace, there was supposed to be a cut before he falls over the edge, which would give him the time to hook on, and then they say action again, and he'd fall over the edge. They went through the fight, got right up to the point where he had to fall over, expecting a cut, didn't get the cut, so he just fell over and just held on, with no cables on him. Yeah, he was a character, but he was. They used to call him the second story guy. He was very strong in his hands and climbing up and getting in windows and things like that. But he was, if you ever met him, you would never think he was a stuntman. He was awfully like that.
Oh, yes.
Yes, very. His backstory, stories of him go on forever, but they're very funny. But he was an excellent stuntman. And I worked with him on many films. He was a good coordinator as well. He was very well liked in the business. He was a bit abrasive, you know. He could be. He told it as it was, and he was very sarcastic in his attitude to some people. But yeah, a great stunt performer, as you can see on those.
Right, we're gonna forward to the premiere now. We're gonna wrap it up now with the actual film. There you are, Irka, arriving in London in June 1979. There's one of the promotional shots, and we've got some shots from the premiere. You didn't get that with No Time to Die, did you? You got the Aston Martin, didn't you? Yeah. This one you got a space shuttle and a Ford Transit. There you are with the other Drax lovers arriving at the premiere. Was anyone who was at the premiere? Anyone here at the premiere? John and Irka. So two of you at the premiere. So we know two. And this is just a little bit of footage of the Drax lovers. And before we finish, have you got any memories of the premiere? What was it like to be at the premiere of a Bond film?
Yeah, it was amazing because we felt like stars. So for the first time in our life, we were stars. So it was very beautiful memories.
You're all stars as well. So you were absolutely wonderful, and it's been absolutely wonderful having you all on the panel. The second.
I just would like to add something. I'm very, very sad because you didn't take me to the bar.
Well, they can make up for it 45 years later, can't they? And have a proper Moonraker reunion. All right, so can we just thank our panel again?